What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Monday Night Live. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Marshall certainly did, as you can see. He's fast asleep. He's had so much fun in the last 48 hours, bless him. He's up. Guys, jump into the comments and let me know that you're breathing and that you're alive. We want to get as much engagement as possible on this live. The reason being is I've got a couple of special guests joining us who've got up especially early just to be on Monday Night Live. Hey, Oliver. First comment of the night. Free joyride in the Lamborghini. I'm kidding. Hey, Paul. I'm hearing it live. Good to hear, mate. You never know these days. We've got a couple of awesome guests. I was lucky enough a few months ago to be on the Digital Marketing Happy Hour podcast, and the roles were reversed. I was the one getting up early, I believe. And hey, tuning in from Ireland. There we go. They're all here, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a good episode. So the Digital Marketing Happy Hour is a super good podcast if you want to get up to date on all things content marketing, SEO, what's going on with Google and all that kind of fun stuff. Oh, there she is, Yen Japney. We've got a celebrity in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Joey from Amsterdam. How you doing? We're going to have an awesome time tonight. I'm excited. In fact, I might even... That makes me feel like a rock star. All right, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Monday Night Live welcome in the comments to Ryan Smith and Chris Casal.
Good evening and good morning.
What's happening, guys?
Yeah, hello. Good evening, good morning. It is 6 a.m. here in the USA on the East Coast.
Up bright and early. It's good. You've got to get after it. Is it
morning.
Monday or Tuesday? Monday.
It is Monday. Yes, we're behind. You're ahead.
And how's it all going over there in the States?
I think it's going well. I think like everybody, 2020 has just been this kind of little topsy-turvy year, and I think we're all starting. Just when you start to figure it out, it throws you a curveball. So we're still trying to figure it out, but so far so good.
Lots of opportunities to learn and grow.
I'm glad you said that. The next thing I was going to say is it has been a weird year, hasn't it? But also it's been a great opportunity for us to learn and grow. You're exactly right, Chris. I think that I've learned a huge amount this year. Like I've said to a friend the other day, I remember saying it's been a weird year, but a good one, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's been interesting working with some of the clients that we work with. There was, everybody plans, right? 6 months, 12 months plans, and March hit and they went out the window, right? Everybody had to kind of restart. But the nice thing that I think that we've seen is that, at least initially, it's kind of weaned off a little bit. But when everything hit, I think we were all a little bit more empathetic and compassionate with one another because we're all just trying to figure this out, right? And we saw that on the business side as well. And I think businesses, with this whole digital transformation have been pushed forward into the space that they've had to work and they've had to learn and they've had to figure this stuff out on the fly. And I think it has been a tremendous opportunity to learn and grow. And we've seen some businesses really shift over this time period.
Yeah. The take-up of digital transformation was happening a bit too slow. Something had to speed it up. Obviously there's been a lot of tragedy as well around this, but the take-up of digital must have doubled. I would, I have seen a chart, but I haven't seen the actual statistics. And the chart of digital adoption just goes like it's like chicking along and then it just shoots up.
Yeah.
What about you, Ryan?
No, 100%. And I think what happened is it was already happening. The digital transformation was happening. However, we find, and we deal with a lot of entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses, sometimes they are the ones that they lag a little bit in that. And what 2020 did, it forced everybody just like a catapult, shot them into this digital transformation. And Chris and I, and just a little background, Chris's area is definitely more on the MarTech side of things. I hover more on the digital strategy side of things. So when we come together and we work with clients, that's what we do is we put our heads together from kind of coming from those two different angles. And we just saw these people, some of them didn't know what to do, and they were forced to jump in. I mean, as little things as working remotely. We saw it with schools. Our schools were using Zoom. So many people did not know what Zoom was at the beginning of 2020, and now they throw that name out there as if it's like Apple, or Google. It's a verb, I think, right? Let's jump on Zoom. So it's interesting to see that in working with even like teachers. Now, when I say working with, sometimes I have kids and they had to do these Zoom calls, and you throw in, maybe you could try this a little bit better, because they're lost. They teach. And if you use that example of that's what they do is they teach, and now they're thrown into this technology. We see that with other businesses. They know their product. They know how to do it. Now, in this new environment, they're lost. And so we've had to kind of help them a little bit, hold their hands, and get into this marketing automation world, which I think a lot of people were intimidated by it. And now it's like, wait a minute, hold on. Life could be a little bit easier. Maybe it's not as confusing and overwhelming that maybe they originally thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this, but in some industries, like when they get that digital adoption right and they've transitioned to where they can work remotely and they've adapted their products and services so that they can be basically a virtual service, it can either just keep the business afloat, which is a good thing in this economy. Like that's a great outcome. But in some industries, like or some niches, it can actually just lead to like a huge trail of growth, can't it? Because if your competitors aren't doing the same thing, then all of a sudden you just gain all this market share. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, and it empowers your people too, right? If management is the three-legged stool of people, processes, and tools, people's your key to success, because the technology is what the technology is, and the business processes are run by the people. But if you get them on board with it, and now you've sort of exponentially increased the technology factor, the individuals you have are either pivoting to do different work because now technology might have picked up some of the things that they were doing, or it sort of empowers them to work faster. And that can be an absolute game changer for certain businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, thoughts?
I agree. I mean, it's, kind of a little bit what I said kind of already on that. And I love Chris's, three-legged stool sort of analogy that he uses. But yeah, it's, put on the seatbelt. I think that's a lot of things. And it's scary for people who aren't familiar with this sort of, transition. But I think as a lot of companies are starting to see, it's a little bit easier. It's maybe a little less scary than they thought. And it's everything. You're seeing it too on the enterprise level, right?
Yeah.
Your Fortune 500 companies, some of them are never going back. I think Google said at least a year, maybe longer. Facebook, some of these positions are permanently going to be work from home. So that's just a small slice of what we're seeing, and how much of it's going to revert back, let's say in 2021, 2022. I don't know. There'll be some go back, but how much? We'll find out, I guess.
Okay. Well, since we've got the digital marketing gurus in the house, what are some of the things that has been going on with Google or the digital marketing world in general that are affecting small businesses and entrepreneurs the most? And let's give it, say, in the last 12 months, what's one of the biggest things that you find that you have to assist businesses with? Is it content? And if so, what kind of content? Social media? Is it Google Analytics? What's happening?
I think the biggest thing is, and we'll just start with content, right? All things go to content. The content everybody knows. Sometimes it's your messaging and how you position that content is key. Even before this pandemic, some of the small to medium-sized businesses, they were getting the content right, but they were having an issue of where do I put it at? So when you just get introduced to somebody, don't send them right to your sales page. We like social media. We always try to think of it as like dating, right? Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's get to know each other before we just get right into, the chapel. So that's a big thing that we've come across with a lot of this. The other part is, I would say, the messaging, especially with this pandemic. And by now, most have made this transformation of, are you being empathetic? Now, are you having an understanding of what's happening? Maybe your business is doing all right and you're surviving. A lot of them aren't. So you have to be careful of that, where you could be a household where one person, you had a 2-income household, all of a sudden now you're down to one. When you're speaking to your clients, understanding what their situation is and their customers, I think that's a big thing. So you have to change a lot of your speeches that you were doing. Possibly what maybe worked, in February of this year no longer is going to be relevant. So I think understanding that in the messaging and the content, to me, those are some of the big things of some of the hurdles that people had to overcome.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I don't think it's so much that we've seen major shifts in the way Google or Bing have operated in terms of search, but I think people have changed, right? And I mentioned this at the top of the hour. If you had a plan for the year in January or February, come March, you had to throw it out the window and kind of start over. So we've always, Ryan and I's philosophy has always been to push companies more into the media space. You have to tell people what you do. You have to share your stories. You have to, make information and solve problems and make that available to people.
Yeah.
So the businesses that did that, and then to Ryan's point, they were empathetic and they published information out front and center, right? And a good example of this, as a general rule, I hate frequently asked questions pages. Hate them. Because to me, if you have frequently asked questions, it's because your content isn't addressing it. That's why they're frequently asked, right?
Interesting. Okay.
But certain businesses now have published their FAQs, and something as simple as like a barbershop, right? I want to go for a haircut. How do I do that today? Like, do I just walk in? Do I have to call ahead? Do I have to wear a mask when I go in, right? And so the businesses that publish that information front and center on their website saying, this is our new policy, this is what it looks like, this is how you can continue to do business with us, I think we've seen we're more successful as a result of it, because they understood the fear that people were having and sort of re-entering the world, as it were.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting when we had a little bit of a lockdown in Perth, and I know it doesn't compare to what's going on in the rest of the world. But like I went to when the barbershop's open, and my hair's a mess, a bit like it is now, and I went to get a haircut, and they said, "Oh no, you got a book on Instagram," and I was like, "Oh, okay. Can you show me how to do that?" And then when I eventually got my haircut there was literally like 2 or 3 people that rocked up at the barbers and didn't know. They're like, "Oh no, you got to do it on Instagram." So they're kind of being reactive. So yeah, you just hit the nail on the head, I think, with what you said there. What about this trend towards like audio search and all that kind of stuff? Is that as big a deal as some people are making out?
I think it's the information architecture is key, and this is something Ryan and I talk to a lot. SEO, it has sort of a bad name to it because there's been so many quote unquote black hats in the industry that have tried to keyword stuff and do all kinds of things. If you're focused on your content from the standpoint of making sure you're using the right keyword phrases, putting them in the right place, and really just trying to serve your audience, and you're setting up your information architecture properly, you're going to get found on that audio search.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's going back to fundamentals, and I think it's using a sports term, American football. It goes back to blocking and tackling. If you can do the fundamentals in your marketing, you'll be fine. You'll overcome whatever Google throws at you next, and changes that they make. And let's face it, they make changes every single day. Now the big ones happen usually like on a quarterly basis, but every single day there is some sort of change. So if you create content and you follow the fundamentals, don't keyword stuff, do it naturally, but you want to get that keyword phrase in there in that first paragraph, something like that. But you don't have to stuff it. Google knows. It's smarter now. It knows synonyms where everything was exact match before. We're past that stage now, so it is so much better. And you can always tell when you do a Google search, maybe you do a typo, and Google comes back and says, "Did you mean such and such and such?" That's Google being smarter. It's learning, And those are ways too. You can find out great ways. What are keyword phrases that I need to be putting into my content? Because Google's going to let you know, did you mean? Also, go to the very bottom of that too. And there are suggestions there that people are typing up. And that's a free way to figure out, okay, what are some things that I need to get into my content that people are asking without paying the premium prices on a lot of these tools? And Really, Chris and I talked about this. We started making a list, just like, we kind of sharing, like, I love this tool. And Chris is like, well, I love this tool. And we start talking about the different tools. Come to find out, there are a lot of tools that are free. or you can get in at there's a freemium, and if you're just starting off, for example, we talk about HubSpot, which is huge in the marketing automation space, and everybody thinks how expensive it is. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It just depends. Can you scale it with your business? And there are a lot of tools that are like that. So we try to push people before you dump thousands of dollars, tens of thousands. Start with the free stuff and scale your business from there.
And like HubSpot's a great example of a business that is smashing it with content marketing, aren't they? They're absolutely killing it. Everything from their emails to what do you think? Do you agree?
Here's the thing: one thing that kind of frustrates me about marketing is everybody likes to reinvent these terms, and they come up with a new way of saying it. The fundamentals of marketing have absolutely never changed. The vehicles have changed, how we go about it, but the fundamentals. Some people don't even learn about the 4 Ps of marketing anymore because they've gone past. But you still have to know the 4 Ps if you're going to market something. You have to know about your product, your price, your placement, and promotion. Along those lines,
I did learn something at uni about marketing then. I remember that now.
Okay, so those are the traditional, when you go to school, that's what you learn, However, that hasn't changed. Everything else around it has changed. HubSpot came along and they coined the term inbound marketing. Yeah. Inbound marketing's always been, as long as Google's had a search engine, there has been such a thing with inbound marketing. What HubSpot did is they coined the phrase, they promoted it, they owned it, and here we are over a decade later. And around that basis, they just created marketing automation tools all around SEO. And they're brilliant at it. Absolutely.
So if you're a small business entrepreneur, maybe you've got up to say 10 people working for you, and you look at HubSpot and you think, Jesus, look how much content they're smashing out. Where do we possibly start? What would your advice be to those guys?
You start with your first article. You pick one area that you are an expert in, that you can contribute some value. You pick a medium, right? That might be writing. It might be for a blog post, but you could do what we're doing here, right? Go on video. You can do a podcast.
Does it matter too much, the medium, or is it more, what's best suited to the particular business?
You have to start with that focus point, and then I would say you produce what's easiest for you to produce, right? Ryan and I have been trying to write for a blog for years, and every once in a while we publish articles, but our time is just so stacked up that we, and we're both perfectionists, so we hold on to that article until it's absolutely ready to publish, right? And so what that results in is we don't publish as frequently as we should. But podcasting, we're able to keep a weekly cadence with that. So the answer to that question is, if you can produce the video and you can do it right now, do it, right? Don't wait for that next thing.
To add on to that, so done is better than perfect. I heard that from Brene Brown, and I don't know if she
love that. I love that.
But and that is something that Chris and I is right. What we in our mind is perfect. In reality, even in my mind, in getting it done, do I think it's perfect? It's still not perfect, and it's coming to that. Wait a minute, Chris and I started a podcast, I think in 2016, and we never got it past the first couple of episodes because we were trying to perfect it and we were trying to tweak it, and it just wasn't happening, and we stopped it. And we shot ourselves in the foot because all we had to do was get it out there, produce content. Now, here's the thing. You talk about mediums. And what Chris was basically saying is, whatever it is, get it out there in some form or fashion, whether it is a video, whether it is a podcast, whether it's a written article, a blog that you're doing, get it out there. What you can do, and what we recently talked about on Digital Marketing Happy Hour, was how to repurpose that content. So a big thing too is you got to work smarter, not harder. Everybody has the same amount of hours in a day. Nat, you have 24 hours in a day, so do us. Somehow, I see you everywhere, right? You're all over the place, which is great. It's like, how does Nat get everywhere? But you're smarter with your time. You work harder, you work smarter, not harder. And I think a lot of times that's what we need to do is, how do you repurpose that content? If you have a blog article, and I say this because that's the traditional SEO that we all kind of started with inbound marketing. Take that blog article, take snippets, and you can make, quote graphics, and you can produce those on Instagram. You can still use Twitter, put them on Facebook. Another thing we found is Pinterest is highly overlooked by a lot of people. Their organic search has gotten better over time. It's not going the way of MySpace. It's not at all. Pinterest is here to stay. Now, which medium? Where's your audience? If your audience, they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and they're females, and if you're not on Pinterest, you are missing the boats on that. Huge organic. You put your little quote graphic, you put whatever, and you put your link and link it back to your website, back to your article. Little things like that, where you can have one core piece of content and then divvy it up to all these different areas. Again, work smarter, not harder.
I had a good look into Pinterest recently, because I was starting to notice it come up a lot in like Google Images and stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, who's the Pinterest experts? And like, what's this person I know doing on there? And I started to, like, when I started to dig into it, I realized, geez, the content's pretty damn good on Pinterest. Like, some of the guys that are posting on there, they get a lot of information into a few images.
Well, it's funny. It's getting smarter too. I recently used a stock photo, and I went to one of the tools I like is Word Swag. I think there's Adobe Spark. There's a few of these, and you can put text on there. And so I put it on Pinterest, and linked it back to a blog article. Well, I went back just recently just to say, like, how's it doing? Is anybody even viewing it? And it was interesting because it was a stock photo. It pulled all of the other people using the same stock photo. Now they overlaid it with different text. And I was just kind of blown away by that. It's like, okay, Pinterest, you're getting extremely smart. It's recognizing all of the similar images up there. So that's another way. Go there and do some research, not just to promote yourself, but see what kind of images that people also are using and what's getting some play on that platform.
There's a huge. I'm just making me think. There's a huge gap in the market in Australia for a Pinterest expert. I don't think that one exists. This is exactly what I did with LinkedIn 11 years ago.
Yeah.
So if anybody's watching who's into all that stuff,
that
one's for free.
Yeah, I'm going to write that one down. Australia. But it's true. It's kind of funny you say that because I always think of Australia is just a massive in the social media digital marketing space. Here bias think USA first, but when I think of that next country, a lot of times people will automatically think, okay, maybe it's Western Europe, maybe it's England. In this space, I don't think so. I think it's Australia is right behind the USA in that sense, and honestly, USA just by pure size, I think in the amount of people with it. But Australia, I tell you what. So to hear you say that about Pinterest, that is a huge opportunity, in Australia.
Yeah, maybe I just haven't come across someone that's really, crushing it in their area yet. But I think the market's wide open because if I haven't come across them, they probably, there's room there to get in the market, as there is on most channels. It's just that like Instagram is just so competitive now. Like I love the platform, don't get me wrong, but everyone's on there. Everyone's smashing it. It's very competitive. All the movie stars are on there posting every day. It's becoming really competitive.
It is. But here's the thing. You can still find your space on Instagram. I think
Absolutely.
You can't, but you have to be you. I think that's the biggest thing is be your most authentic self.
It's the only way to differentiate yourself, really. Yeah.
It is. And here's the thing. Nat, you and I and Chris, we can get here and talk and have come up with the same exact LinkedIn strategies, how we're going to, execute and everything else. And we can educate people on it. Half the time, most of the time, people aren't just buying that information from you. It's your personality. That's what they care the most about. And I think people have to realize.
I'm blushing. Are you talking? I don't think you're talking about me personally. But
yeah, I am talking about you now. But it's true. And I think with all these spaces, Instagram, it's like, it's too late. YouTube, too late. I'm 10 years too late on YouTube. Instagram, I'm a year to 2 years too late, even though Instagram just hit 10 years and only blew up a couple of years ago. I'm too late. Yeah. Twitter, nobody's there. But I think if you're your authentic self and you're producing that content, that's what people are going to gravitate to. So it's hard when you talk about these platforms and you can be overwhelmed because there's so many people on there and they're, you get that imposter syndrome, and that's a big thing that holds people back. If you become you and you put yourself out there, good things are going to happen. People are going to gravitate to you because over time, the clients or potential customers that are more aligned with you, that get your personality, maybe they get your jokes that maybe some others don't, those are the ones that are going to be your customers. And
yeah, that'd be my favorite ones. Yeah.
So I would definitely say don't be too, for people out there, it's not too late for any of these platforms, and don't be too timid.
Yeah, and there's a big discussion around quality versus quantity. And, I read a lot of stuff about how you can sort of make that balance right. And, you've got Gary Vaynerchuk going volume, volume, volume. And then you've got, like, you look at HubSpot's content and they're like mapping out customer journey maps and doing all this research and stuff. How do you think a small business finds the balance between those two? Maybe we'll go to Chris first.
Well, a small business doesn't have the resources that a HubSpot or a Gary Vee has, right? So it's easy for HubSpot to produce, what are they up to, 5 blogs now, and have individuals that are assigned to write a blog article or 2 per week. They can produce dozens and dozens of articles. The average small business can't do that, right? You might have one person, and it might be 20% of that one person's job to do all of that stuff. That person's not going to be able to produce a ton of content every week. And that's why we go back to pick one area of content that your customers are looking for that can have an impact. Focus on producing that piece of content in whatever medium you choose. And then to the point that Ryan made earlier, find ways to repurpose that content, right? If it's a video, take snippets of it and post it on different social media channels. Take a transcript of the audio and make that text available, right? Find ways to reuse that content and redistribute across other platforms. And,
I think you said something really important there, which you said, relatively quickly, which I probably should highlight. Find out what you can help your customers with, what their problems that they're struggling with. So if you do have an FAQ page, if you find out what the frequently asked questions are or what their frequent frustrations are, base the content around what they want to hear from you, not what you want to tell them.
That's absolutely true. Ryan and I say this all the time. Know your audience. You have to know your audience. You have to understand, what are their fears? What are their motivations? What do they need right now? And don't produce something because you want to sell something. All right, I was talking earlier about sending them directly to the sales page, right? Don't worry about that.
A lot of people will be scratching their heads listening now. What do you mean?
Well, focus on just being helpful. How can you provide value to that individual? Because then when they need something later, when they're ready to make a purchase, your name, your brand is going to be top of mind for them. So absolutely. And that also goes in line with what you guys were talking about earlier with social media platforms. There's a host of platforms that you can pick, but that customer, the one that we were just talking about that you can provide an answer to that is interested in you, where are they? That's where you want to be posting your content.
Yeah. Ryan?
Honestly, everything Chris just said. I think the other thing too is look at your analytics. The other part of this we like to go to is Google Analytics. So many people, they have the accounts, they have a person or they have an agency, right? They have this agency and they send them the reports. My biggest thing is, especially when I'm going in with a new client, looking at them, looking into it, I want to see what information have you been told? Meaning, is there transparency that their current agency has with them? If you have a vendor right now that's doing it for you, ask to see. Yes, they're going to send you customized, beautiful reports. They're probably the most color and illustrated. You got to open up and look at the Google Analytics. If you have somebody doing it for you, get your username and password and dig in there. Now, once you're in there, start looking at the pages that people are going to. See where they're leaving. If they're exiting on a certain page, or you send them to a landing page, hypothetically, and they don't fill out the form and they bounce. It's maybe not so much that the content of your page is bad. Maybe the audience isn't ready for it to go. You have to start asking questions on every single thing that you come across. So a lot of times, I see people give up real fast. It's not working. Maybe you just have to tweak. Look at the analytics. Start asking yourself questions. And you have to, it's the whole thing is like saying why 7 times, why? Keep asking that on every page and you'll drill it down to the smallest little granular. And now you can start making a change on your website. And again, it's not necessarily what you want, it's what your customer wants. And a lot of people they toe that line, and a lot of people have a tough time because they always think of themselves, if it's me, if I'm my own customer, this is what I want. And that is the worst thing you could ever do in marketing, because you're not marketing yourself. And it's hard to separate yourself from your customer. Now, in certain cases, sure, you can do that and you'll get away with it and it'll be fine. But as a whole, I think it's really important to, as Chris said, know your audience, understand where they live, not just on your website. What are other websites they go on? What are they saying on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, whatever it may be? So you have to do some research, and sometimes people don't put in the time to do that. Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't. You can't really see the value until something clicks and you go, aha. Like with my YouTube, it blew me away. But like this would be something that people watch, will get some value out of. But on my YouTube, like I did 500 videos. 500 videos, yeah, at least 500 videos, and I was around 1,000 subscribers. Took a long time, like 500 videos, 1,000 subscribers. And then I decided to look into the analytics of YouTube. And it turns out I got 80% of those subscribers from one video. And I was like, oh, I hate that video. Like what I watched. It's like a longer video. Yeah. I was doing a talk and my slides behind me, they wouldn't work. So I was like a bit nervous. My hands were all over the place. So I was like, oh, I hate watching that talk. It's where almost all my subscribers were coming from. And so I was like, okay, why is this video converting subscribers and the other ones aren't? And then as soon as I figured that out, it went from 1,000 to 10,000 within 12 months. And now it's around 12,000, I think. So digging into the analytics.
That 400 videos ago. I mean, that's what we see all the time. Ryan, and as we sit down and we start to come up with a schedule we typically try to plan the Digital Marketing Happy Hour podcast out about 4 to 6 weeks in advance, just because things shift, right? And so we coordinate with guests and things like that. I can tell you we've had some fantastic guests on the show. We've had you on the show before, and that always resonates well with
best episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, there have been some episodes that Ryan and I will get together on a Sunday night and go, I don't know, man, what are we going to talk about this week? And in 15 minutes, we'll go, all right, well, I read this. What did you read? And we'll put together an episode, and I will personally feel like we're stumbling through it. Like we're just kind of rambling a little bit. And that episode is the one that takes off. Gets hundreds, if not thousands of views, and it's shared, and we get we get people emailing us saying, hey, can you talk more about this? And we're like, we thought that was going to be just a filler for a week.
Yeah,
you don't know. Yeah. And that's why looking at your data is so important, because if you know, to your point, right, you find that one video that's getting all the traction, you create similar content or content that can augment that. And next thing you know, that's your audience. They're speaking to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the biggest thing too, you have to make data-driven decisions on your marketing. It's so easy. I talk to people. It's like, you can tell it's that whole, WAG theory, right? Wild ass guess, right? WAG theory. They have a gut feeling and they just decide to do it, and that's great. I actually like that people try things, but look at your analytics and see what the data is telling you. Is it are people gravitating to it, or it's empty? Nobody's going to that page, or no one's engaging with whatever campaign that you have running. So look at the analytics, not just Google Analytics, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of those analytics. They're going to tell you the story, but never look at just one. Now if you're already feel overwhelmed by analytics, I think it's important to look at, if you're doing a campaign in Facebook, look at their analytics and compare it to the analytics you're seeing in Google. They're never going to line up, so don't ever expect them to be exactly the same. But it's important to look at two different sort of data platforms to get a better understanding. You want to see, how did people engage with something like a Facebook ad? And then when they got to your website, what happened? And if they just leave, you need to find out why they left. Did your ad not align with the page that you send them to? Were you too quick asking them to marry you? Sometimes it can be feeling very intrusive. I have somebody, a client who
it feels more like a one night stand on most landing pages, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100% it does. It's not big. It's so the biggest thing I think too is I had a client who's immediately sending people, and it was request a consultation, where it was for an ad agency. and immediately you can schedule the date and the time. It was a nice little calendar, 0 conversions. And my thought was, you're asking people too quickly, believe it or not, to send a free consultation of 15 minutes. That's asking too much from somebody. You're not getting anything. What you need to do is get them an opt-in, get a lead this way, give them a free download. And from there, then you can start emailing them, which it feels it's not so intrusive. And so little things, believe it or not, little tweaks like that will go further. Now, if they download your content and you have their email address, you send them some emails, they're opening them. You can look at your analytics. They'll tell you if they're opening them. Now, send them through your lead nurturing sequence. Hey, let's schedule, a consultation for free. Things like that, as opposed to schedule your consultation. If you do it to a cold audience, probably you're going to have a very low conversion rate.
Yeah.
If you do that to people who are familiar with you, now you're going to have a higher conversion rate. And the big thing with higher conversion rates is you're going to pay lower. Your cost is going to be a lot lower. So it's extremely important, to do that as well.
I want to get a couple of questions from the audience on the screen at the moment. Paul would always like us to buy him a drink first. But he's got a good question, and Paul builds websites in the UK, so I think that this will be quite a good one. So what content ratio of info versus sales would you work at now, and has that changed?
Man, that's a great question. So I think the rule that we always tried to follow was 80-20, 80% info, 20% sales. Has that changed? I think it depends on the industry you're in, but I think erring on the side of more info. If they are ready to buy, they are going to find your sales information. You don't need to push that upon them, right? So erring more on the side of the information, you're never going to go wrong.
Yeah.
80-20 is always a good principle, I think, in everything in life. But, back in the day, there was always especially when Twitter was big, when it was the biggest, social platform, there was this rule, and I still use it. It's 411. So every 4 pieces of content you produce should be informative education. Then the one you should retweet. So share somebody else's content. And then on that last one, now you should promote something of your product or service. So that way, that's 80-20. 80% of it is educational, informative, and then that last one, you should push it out there. So in different platforms, you can follow that sort of 80-20 process.
Yeah, and I think it depends on your product or service. Like, there was a point in my speaking career where I stopped selling from stage, and I found out exactly what I think you both touched on, which is people want to buy from me, they'll find out how to buy. I don't have to, you want to give people the next step, but sometimes if you don't do that, it makes it more exclusive. They've got more intrigue, and so and sometimes it helps with getting those premium clients. Like I found the clients I would get would be bigger. Like if I sold from stage, it always had to be a massive discount, and I'd get 8 or 9 sales, but they'd each be worth less. And I think it's similar with social media. Like I found, because these days on LinkedIn, like I very rarely go, "This is how you buy from me," but I get all these private messages from people asking, "How do I buy from you?" Right. So sometimes you don't have to lay it all out there, but mind you, on the website it's very clear, like this is what you do.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just different mediums.
Well, and everybody's buying journey is a little bit different, right? I mean, there's you'll get that email that from your perspective, it feels like, this is out of the blue. I didn't know. They've been following you for 9 months or 18 months on social media channels and paying attention to what you're doing. It's just they only reached out when they were ready, and that's the way it should be. So getting information helps facilitate that.
And to relate this too, it doesn't matter what your product or service is, whether you're a B2B or B2C, that process relatively is going to be the same. So if you are working at an a car dealership, you're selling cars, and I bring this up, I've worked with a lot of car dealerships, and they all have this, and maybe it's in your neck of the woods, it's also kind of the same. As soon as you get on the lot, it's like vultures. The salespeople, you feel like swarming you, right? They're coming around you. In the digital marketing space with automotive, a lot of them are doing the exact same process as on the car showroom floor as they're doing, and you have to pump the brakes on that a little bit. By the time in the automotive industry has killed it for consumers, they do not want to give you their information until they're ready to make the choice, because automotive has killed the customer experience with blasting them on the phone, blowing them up on email, and all these different discounts, trying to throw things to get their way, because it's very competitive. What we found is if you pump the brakes a little bit on that, educate them, make them, some of them are intimidated to walk into a car dealership. And I'm using this as an example. You can use other areas very similar to that.
I've experienced it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So very much the same over there too. And the big thing is they're not going to give you your phone number, or at least a working phone number, until they're ready to speak to you. By the time, I think the customer journey is about 70 to 90 days is what it takes to buy. By the time they reach out to you, though, it's only a couple of weeks. As Chris said, they've already been doing the research. They've already been looking at your content. They've already went on YouTube. They've done the test drive videos on YouTube. Here's a little stat. It's up to like twice as many people test drive a car on YouTube than they actually do the physical car. And that's, you want to talk about digital transformation in the automotive space, is you used to go to 5 different car dealerships before you bought a car. Now it's 1.1 or 1.2 in the USA. Wow. It's because they're doing everything online and they're doing all this research. So by the time they're going to give you their information and contact you, they pretty much know what they want. They just need to know what color you have. You know what I mean? And it
probably applies to a lot of other industries as well. It's just probably not as transparent because there's not all those dealerships. But like they're probably not speaking to as many providers. They're doing a lot of their research online.
And that's where that goes back to I think it was Paul's question about the info versus sales. That's why information is so important, because they're already doing it. So put it out there so it's easy for them to find on there. Yep. Then they'll come to you. Now you build your authority, your expertise. They're going to check out your reviews to see how other people have bought from you. So that's important to make sure that you have some good reputation management with Google My Business. Make sure you have those stars up there. There's at least 4. And higher, because those are all the factors that go into,
and real ones,
100% with that. And it's important to look at all that. So, good question though.
Well, I'll take one more because we're doing pretty well for time. Marino876 from YouTube. What kind of copy do you think is best when you're reaching out to potential clients on LinkedIn? I want to keep my mouth shut on this one.
Let me tell you what not to do. I think that's the easiest thing not to do, is when you connect with somebody and immediately they're pitching you on something. It happens. I'm so tired of it. The world is doing LinkedIn wrong if you're doing it that way on it. Chris, I'll let you jump in on this one. But informative. I think educate. Don't be salesy on there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's mastering that sort of balance of the ask-offer ratio, right? If you're going to ask the person on the other end to do something, what are you offering them that's going to be worth their time to do that, right? And to Ryan's point, I think we've all experienced this on LinkedIn. And now I can almost see it a mile away. As soon as I get you're big in the tech industry, I would like to connect. I'm like, oh boy, sales pitch in 3, 2, right? And nobody wants to deal with that, because at the end of the day, all of us hate being sold to, but we love to buy when we're ready to buy. So I think it's a matter of keeping it more informative, keeping it light, sharing information that's valuable, establishing that connection and that relationship first. And then, and asking for feedback is another great way to do that. Hey, I got this content here, was curious. I'd love to get your thoughts on it if you got time to read it, But don't go into that sales pitch, as Ryan said. When they're ready, they will make those connections and whatnot. It's really just establishing those relationships.
And I think the big thing too is, especially in that B2B space, your marketing and your sales teams cannot be siloed. Those days are gone. They have to talk. The marketing team, you need to talk to your sales and arm them with content that they can share. So, and a lot of times, I think by natural, it's sales. It's that old, you're using LinkedIn is the new cold calling, yellow pages, where they're just going to go through Connect and you're prospecting. There's another way to prospect on LinkedIn that isn't so forceful, like you're shoving your product down their throat. The other thing is, I'll immediately get, hey, I would like to schedule a 15-minute phone call with you to consult. If I took every 15 minutes that everybody says, which all of that 15 minutes is, I'm going to get you on the phone so I can sell you my product. I think where do
they get these numbers from? Why does it have to be 15 minutes?
I'm sure you know why 15 minutes. It's not 30 minutes. It's not an hour. Everybody.
It can't be that important if it's only 15 minutes.
Well, there's it. Yeah. Or they get you the hook, and it ends up being an hour anyway. So,
Yeah.
and I think the big thing is you shouldn't be asking people right away when you connect with them for that 15 minutes. I think you need to prove it to them that it's worth their time, because 15 minutes from now, it's not just a phone call. I always tell people, it's like, this is the best platform to reach me on. Now, if we could progress and a phone call is needed, we'll schedule that, appointment down the road. So yeah. I know sales reps do that, but marketing needs to help, and they need to work together.
They need to help them,
with content.
Yeah. This is so relevant. What Amber's, I'm sorry, I'm blocking the faces for a little bit, but let's have a read of this. She's been dropping some value in the comments. Make digital marketing part of your company by allowing your staff to produce content for platforms they're comfortable with, and empowering. Yeah, spot on, Amber. Well done.
So spot on. I mean, and honestly, I could share a story. I'll make it very quick here. But the company that Ryan and I met at here in the Tampa, Florida area was a tech company, and there was basically very little marketing presence at the time that we got there. I was there on the web side of things, marketing. Ryan on the digital strategy side of things. And one of the first things that Ryan tried to do was we need to get a blog going, because you guys aren't producing any content here, and you're the only people that are finding you are people that are way down in the weeds, which is why your sales funnel is so light, right? And I mean, the process of getting that blog off the ground was torture. I mean, no, we don't want to do it, because what happens if we stop publishing? And the end result, the way it became successful, I think I wrote like the third or fourth article, and I'm not any special writer here, but it was all right. I can write a content topic like this, we can edit it, we can go back and forth. And that's exactly how the blog became successful, leveraging the individuals in the company who knew a lot about what they were really good at. But then you get somebody that has a writing sense, kind of look over, copy edit, and you start publishing that content. Yeah. And I mean, I would argue, Ryan Watt, I mean, to get one article every 2 weeks was like pulling teeth when we initially started. But towards the end of it, we were getting 3 or 4 a week, people going, I could write about this, or I could talk about that, right? You really have to embed that and make that the culture of the organization.
It was interesting here too. This was in 2011, and this is when we really discovered inbound marketing. All right, let's go to this approach. In 2011, people were like, oh, blogging, like you missed the boat on blogging. All right, 9 years later, you can still blog, and you can still make a difference if you're creating content. So find the experts, find the people to do it. It is a team, and we have to remember that it's not siloed. We're not individuals. We are all a part of a team. Unless you're a solopreneur, you have team members. And I think you need to rely on the experts, in your department and in your company to create this content. So a lot of people, are there and they have these ideas. They're just not getting it on paper.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, this has been one of the longer Monday Night Lives we've done. I like this. I want to keep going, but we've got time. It's been a pleasure having you on, guys. I really appreciate it. For everybody who's listening, go check out the Digital Marketing Happy Hour podcast. It was one of the most fun I've had on a podcast, and maybe start off with the Nat Bibby interview, if you know what's good for you. They had Jay Baer on recently, which I'm going to go check that out. That sounds awesome.
No, Jay Baer is fantastic. Neil Schaefer's another one that we recently interviewed. Oh, yeah. And here's one more. If you struggle with content, in most people, it's the process. They don't know. They need to get a system. We had Melanie Diesel on recently. She came out with a book. It's a content marketing framework. Fuel.
Oh yeah, I've got that one. Yeah.
And this is something, I recently, with content, it's like we talked about, I have it in my head, but coming up with a process and a system and getting it out there was always an obstacle for me. And I've been doing this for a while, and it still is. Her system is pretty easy to follow, and you'll always have all these content ideas. Check her out too. You're going to find value with those guests. Yeah. And of course, Nat Bibby's there. So definitely check him out. But hey, by the way,
thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for being on the show. I mean,
and now it's getting too late. We're on the award-winning, right? This is the award-winning Monday Night Live.
Yeah, there was this campaign we won for this year. So yeah,
congratulations to you on that.
Congrats.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. So it's really due to all these guys that you see popping up in the comments. They're here every week supporting. So it's their reward as much as it is mine.
Awesome. No, these are great. And here's the one thing too that I've learned: international marketing is something I've done. I've spoken. I've not done Australia. I definitely want to get there, but even going into the Middle East, throughout Asia, North America, cultures are different. There's no doubt about it. Our cultures are all different. Our problems are all the same. And and that's the one thing we have to understand. And so when Chris is talking about know your audience, in your international marketing, that's part of it. Understand their culture, understand the words that they use. They can convey maybe the same thing, but they use different words. So I think that's a big thing, is getting their understanding. And you can do that research on social media. Follow your prospective clients, see the words that they're using, and incorporate it in your messaging. Yeah.
Great advice. Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Absolutely. All right, guys. You guys have a fantastic day in the US, and for everybody watching, have a fantastic week in business. We'll see you next week on Monday Night Live. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.